Here's something that doesn't add up. In 1973, the same year America was suffocating under an oil embargo, when insurance companies were strangling muscle cars to death, and when Detroit was quietly waving the white flag on performance, Plymouth somehow slipped a car onto the market that ran the quarter mile faster than cars with twice its displacement. No one was supposed to know, and for 50 years, most people didn't. This is the story of the 1973 Plymouth Duster 340, a car that lived in the shadow of its louder, flashier brothers, a car that got dismissed, underestimated, and eventually forgotten by the mainstream. But underneath that unassuming body was an engineering secret that the people at Plymouth never fully advertised, and the people who drove one never forgot. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why this little Mopar still sends collectors into a bidding war, why street racers in the early 70s swore by it, and why the number 340 means something very specific to anyone who grew up around real American muscle. To understand what makes the 1973 Duster 340 special, you have to understand what America looked like in 1973, because context is everything with this car. The muscle car era, that glorious, thunderous, wide-open window from about 1964 to 1971, was already closing fast. Insurance premiums on high-horsepower cars had tripled in some states. A young guy in his 20s trying to insure a 446 pack or a 426 Hemi was looking at payments that cost more than the car itself. The insurance industry had essentially declared war on horsepower. Then came October of 1973. The Arab oil embargo hit American gas stations like a freight train. Lines stretched around the block. Rationing went into effect. The national speed limit dropped to 55 miles per hour. Suddenly, a 500 cubic inch car that got 8 miles to the gallon wasn't just expensive, it felt almost irresponsible. Detroit blinked. The big boys started voluntarily strangling their own engines, dropping compression ratios, pulling carburetors, detuning anything that might attract regulatory attention. The muscle car, as America knew it, was on life support, and right in the middle of all of that chaos, Plymouth kept building the Duster 340. The Duster itself had launched in 1970 as a budget option. It rode on the A-body platform, the same bones as the Valiant, which made it compact, light, and frankly a little plain-looking. It didn't have the aggressive stance of a Roadrunner. It didn't carry the legendary name of a Barracuda. It was a practical, affordable fastback that a family man could actually afford to insure. That was also exactly what made it dangerous on the street. See, when drag racers and street racing enthusiasts looked at a Duster, they didn't see a budget commuter. They saw a lightweight body. The Duster tipped the scales around 3,100 pounds, wrapped around one of Chrysler's most underrated high-performance engines, the 340 cubic inch small block V8. And this is where the story gets interesting. The 340 small block is, without exaggeration, one of the finest performance engines Chrysler ever produced. And that's saying something for a company that also built the 426 Hemi. Here's what made it exceptional. The 340 was designed from the ground up to rev. While big block engines made their power through sheer displacement, just moving massive amounts of air and fuel, the 340 was engineered to breathe efficiently at high RPM. It had large, free-flowing ports. The heads flowed remarkably well for the era. The factory 4-barrel carburetor, a Carter AVS in most configurations, fed it properly, and Chrysler had given it a fairly aggressive camshaft profile that kept the engine pulling hard all the way through its power band.
In 1973, the 340 was rated at 240 horsepower. Now stop right there, because that number requires some explanation. By 1972, the entire American auto industry had switched from gross horsepower ratings to net horsepower ratings, a more conservative, real-world measurement taken with all the accessories attached and running. That 240 net horsepower figure actually compared very favorably to what the competition was producing at the time. Chevrolet's 350 LT1, the high-performance small block, and the Camaro Z28 was rated at 245 horsepower that same year. The Ford 351 Cleveland and the Mustang Mach-1 was making similar numbers. But here's what the spec sheet didn't tell you. The 340 in the Duster weighed significantly less than those competitors. And in performance driving, weight is everything. The Duster 340 package puts you in a car that could run the quarter mile in the mid-14-second range. Some drivers reported consistent 14.5s with good tires. And that was right out of a showroom that smelled like cigarette smoke and had a salesman in a wide lapel suit trying to sell you the rust-proofing package. That was genuinely quick for 1973, quicker than most people expected from a car with a sticker price that started around $2,800. Plymouth was smart about the Duster 340 in a way that doesn't always get credit. At a time when flashy performance advertising was drawing fire from insurance companies and regulators, Plymouth was quietly letting the car do the talking. The 340 package was available without calling massive attention to itself. You could order a Duster 340 with relatively subdued striping. It wasn't wearing a billboard. It wasn't screaming its own name from the hood. You could pull up next to someone at a light and look perfectly ordinary, right up until the moment you didn't. The Duster also benefited from a fantastic suspension setup. Chrysler's torsion bar front suspension, a design they'd been refining since the late 1950s, gave the car sharp, responsive handling that its contemporaries from Ford and GM couldn't always match. The rear leaf spring setup was tuned well for the weight distribution, and with the available Sure Grip limited slip differential in the rear axle, putting the power down off the line was consistently manageable. Performance trims also received front disc brakes as a key option, a detail that mattered when you were driving a car with genuine performance capability. Plymouth understood that stopping was as important as going. In 1973 America, if you were between 16 and 30 years old and you knew anything about cars, the Duster 340 had a very specific reputation. It was the wolf in sheep's clothing, the sleeper, the car that made its money on other people's underestimation. Street racing culture in the early 70s operated on exactly that kind of psychology. You wanted the car that didn't announce itself. The Duster fit that profile perfectly. It was compact, it was relatively common-looking, and it had a factory drivetrain that responded beautifully to even modest modifications, a cam upgrade, a better intake manifold, some carburetor tuning, without becoming unreliable or expensive to maintain. For working-class kids and young adults who had grown up worshipping the muscle car era but couldn't afford the insurance on a 440 Magnum, the Duster 340 was genuinely accessible performance. It democratized the experience in a way that the headline cars of the late 1960s never could. Even in the shadow of the oil embargo, there was something almost defiant about the Duster 340's existence in 1973. The era was ending, and here was Plymouth saying, not loudly, but clearly, that it wasn't over yet. The 1973 model year was the last year for the 340. Plymouth killed the engine the following year, replacing it with a 360 cubic inch unit that made less power and had noticeably less of the high-revving character that made the 340 so beloved. The reasons were a combination of emissions compliance costs, the realities of the fuel crisis, and internal corporate prioritization at Chrysler.
By 1974, the writing was on the wall for the entire performance car segment. Chrysler was dealing with serious financial pressures that would escalate dramatically through the decade. Resources for developing and certifying high-performance engines through new emission standards were becoming harder to justify. The Duster nameplate itself survived until 1976, but it was never the same car without that engine. What had been a genuine performance machine became, in the words of more than a few enthusiasts at the time, just another compact. The magic had been in the 340, and when that engine left, it took the car's identity with it. Today, a numbers-matching 1973 Duster 340 in excellent condition is a serious collector car. Well-preserved, documented examples have sold at auction in the range of $35,000 to $55,000, with exceptional restorations and rare color and option combinations pushing beyond that. The combination of the final year for the 340 engine and the Duster's increasingly recognized status as a legitimate performance car from a complicated era has driven sustained collector interest. The 340 engine itself is a significant factor in valuation. Because it was used to cross multiple Mopar platforms, there are unfortunately many cars out there that have been re-engined over the decades, with original 340s transplanted out or replaced. A genuine, documented, matching numbers car commands a meaningful premium. rare factory colors, and Chrysler's color palette in the early 70s was remarkably bold. Combined with the right option packages, including the Rally instrument cluster and the pistol grip 4-speed transmission, can make the difference between a good car and an exceptional one. Here is the thing most people don't know about the 1973 Duster 340. In the original Plymouth internal documentation and dealer training materials from that period, the 340 was described with the specific language of performance per dollar, a phrase that sounds modest but was actually a direct strategic positioning against Chevrolet's Camaro Z28, which cost significantly more and was becoming increasingly difficult to insure. Plymouth knew exactly what they had. They just chose not to shout about it. The Duster 340 won its battles quietly, and maybe that's exactly why it has outlasted the loud ones in the memory of everyone who ever had the privilege of driving one. The 1973 Plymouth Duster 340 was never supposed to be the hero of the muscle car story. It was the practical choice, the budget option, the car that got overlooked while everyone argued about Hemis and big blocks. But 50 years later, it's the car that enthusiasts genuinely wish they had kept. The car that reminds us that sometimes the smartest engineering doesn't announce itself. If you had a Duster 340 or you knew someone who did, drop the color in the comments. I want to know. And if you think the 340 small block deserves to be mentioned in the same conversation as the Hemi, hit that like button, because honestly, the argument is stronger than most people realize. Subscribe if you want more stories about the cars that history almost forgot, because the best ones always have something left to tell.